The idea of a reset has become increasingly trendy on social media. Content creators, myself included, have flooded the feeds of our followers with Sunday resets, post-travel resets, resets for each room, resets for each life occasion. I love these videos, my followers love these videos, so I began to wonder why we so deeply crave hitting that reset button. In some ways, it's the same as falling off and getting back on the metaphorical track on which we all attempt to aim our lives. We feel good when we're moving forward, towards something, the routines keeping the steady beat of our life on our way to some ideal good. But if we never fall off, there would never be the necessity to reset. So maybe subversively, the reset acknowledges that life is never that linear. Better yet, maybe it's all a bit more complicated than a forward-moving track. Maybe the problem is not with you, but with the belief that our progress in life is defined only by straight and narrow forward motion. Maybe it's all softer and messier and less measurable on your journey toward the dream life. So I wonder what we must do to rid ourselves of the illusion that life is moving on some imaginary and unattainable track. Maybe instead of forward motion, we should think about inner motion. How close can I get to being my truest, fullest, and most unapologetic self? Hello my dears, welcome back to another brand new vlog. I'm really excited about this one. I feel like this is just my favorite video to make every year, which is a mid-year reset. I know that not everyone is into goal setting and that kind of thing, but for me, I feel like articulating my intentions for my life is really helpful in like keeping me aligned and keeping me feeling like I have a purpose and forward motion. So I'm someone who really thrives off of like setting goals and making sure that I'm aligning my everyday life and habits with the goals that I've been setting. I like to have like themes and intentions and energies that I carry with me throughout my day. This vlog is just going to be all about kind of reflecting on those goals that I set at the beginning of the year, kind of seeing where we are at with them and just refreshing, resetting, making sure that we feel really like good and revitalized to enter the second half of the year really strong. I feel like this is especially important because this is like a big time of transition. A lot is happening this summer. My husband recently just got a huge promotion. Things have changed for him a lot. We're moving at the end of August and I'm actually going to be away from like my regular work and routines for most of the month of August as well, because I'm going to be doing a dance intensive, which is basically like dancing 9 to 5 for a week. That's here in Boston, so I'll still be home in the evenings, but it does like take up a lot of time. I won't be in my regular daily routines. And then right after that, essentially, we're doing like a tiny little birthday trip for myself and my husband. We're both Leos. Our birthdays are 2 days apart. And then I will be heading straight off to the mountains of Vermont for a writer's conference. And then right after I get back from the writer's conference, we are moving literally the next day. So I feel like during that time, I'm really going to be living and experiencing and just like being in the present moment. So I feel like now is such a good time to realign myself, set my intentions, and make sure that I'm going into that like period of my life kind of like feeling at home with who I am and what my goals and intentions are. Take a shot every time I say intentions in this little chat. So we are going to get right into it. You just saw my lovely like weekend long morning routine. I did such a good everything shower, gave myself a little blowout. I'm feeling so fresh. So the first thing that I want to do is just take a look at the goals and intentions that I wrote down at the beginning of the year and see how we are doing. I did my little journaling this morning, kind of reflecting on all of the stuff that I had said at the beginning of the year. And something about this is that this year, I tried to approach goal setting differently. In the 2 years prior, I was really focused on like concrete, aggressive goals that had numbers and like daily habits associated with them. I was in that era where having these extremely concrete goals that translated into daily habits, monthly habits, etc., was really where I needed to be. It encouraged me to be disciplined and to really be moving forward on these things even when I didn't want to be. And I honestly feel like I credit so much of like building my business and my social media and like moving forward in my career and all of that sort of thing to that mentality for goal setting. But But at the end of last year, kind of going into the beginning of this year, I was feeling super burnt out and just kind of realizing that the pace at which I'm moving is not sustainable, and like there's no reason to pursue all of these aggressive goals if you're not living in the meantime. I felt a real pull to kind of return to myself, my true self as an artist, and slow down, allow a little bit more space for the creative process and for play, and not just constantly be in that like masculine energy side of myself, which is so ambitious and entrepreneurial and go-getter, that I was almost forgetting about this other side of myself who I really feel like I am, which is the like poet and dreamer and like artist and dancer. So this is all to say, long story short, I took a much softer approach to goal setting this year, where I was really just thinking about like, what do I want more of? What do I want my intentions and themes to be, as opposed to like very concrete numeric goals that would be moving forward with my business and my career. The first one that I had written down was more art, write more poetry, spend time on editing and submitting my work out to journals, work on my 2 book manuscripts, apply for opportunities to get funding for my writing, prioritize art over work. That was a big one. So I feel like in general, I've been doing really good with this. I changed up my morning journaling practice so that I'm writing poetry essentially every morning. What I'll do is, if I'm already feeling inspired, I'll just sit down and write. But if I'm not feeling inspired, what I'll do is I'll actually go read a couple of poems from a book that I know I really like that's inspiring to me, and then I'll use those poems as a prompt. And sometimes what comes out of it is like awful, and sometimes the poems that come out of it are really good. But the idea is that I'm in my poetry writing practice every single day, and to be honest, that has totally been working. I have produced a lot more poetry this year than I did last year. I do feel like I need more dedicated time and space to actually be working on my book manuscripts though, but I've been taking really good action toward that. And in terms of like applying for opportunities as well, I got into the Bread Loaf Writers Conference, which is what the conference I was talking about, that's like in the forest in Vermont. So I'm going to that in August, and I feel like that's going to be 10 days where I can really focus on my writing practice. And I think bringing one of those books kind of as like an intention to work really hard on my book manuscript while I'm there, I'm hoping will help like jumpstart that for the rest of the year. The next one that I had written down is more play, leaning into doing things that don't have direct results, such as like learning how to make pasta or starting a garden on the porch, learning French, reading books for fun, including and especially fiction, and like going to dance classes, stuff like this. So I feel like, again, I've done decently well with this. I realized last year that I wasn't reading books that I wanted to read. If you don't know, I'm a book editor. My business is editing books, so I read a ton, but it's not like the books that I choose that I want to read. It's the books that I'm working on with my clients. So I realized that I like was not reading for pleasure, and when I would read for pleasure, quote unquote, I was only reading like nonfiction self-development type stuff, which is great, and I still do enjoy it for sure. I love a good self-development book. I was losing that part of myself that brought me to this work in the first place. Like, I was a kid who my parents would think I was sleeping in on the weekends, and I had been up since 7 a.m. like devouring an entire book in my bedroom. I went through the YA section of the library like it was my full-time job. And I realized that like for the past few years, I've not even been reading any fiction. I've not been reading anything that I wanted to read for fun. So I've really gotten back into that. And I feel like I've just had to be kind of compassionate with myself because I'm so busy. So with the fact that like I'm not gonna get through a book a week, you know, I'm not gonna be one of those people who like counts how many books I've read in a year, but I definitely have returned to like reading for me and reading for pleasure. I've been playing my little games on my Nintendo Switch, which has been so fun. Currently playing Zelda Breath of the Wild. Definitely have been leaning into like plant care. I've gotten a couple of new plants. I did get a mint plant that has been growing out on the porch, but this damn heat wave, I feel like it's gonna die. Like, she's not doing well no matter how well I am taking care of it. And yeah, I have been going to some dance classes. So I feel like I'm doing pretty well on this, but once again, I just wanna lean into it like even more. Okay, the next one, I literally wrote down less job, which is so funny. I think really what I meant there was just like, for me, my default is always work. if I have free time, I will always default to like, what can I work on next? Ultimately losing myself and my like artist self and my creative self and my playful self to always defaulting to work. I think I've done a pretty good job with this. I have a good balance. Working from home really helps, but at the same time, I have had a new boss at work, which makes that a little bit less possible because I've kind of had to like show up in a different way. At the same time, I know that ultimately in my life, I'm meant to work for myself. I feel like I keep that idea in mind with all of the decisions that I make. Literally in the past few months, I have received 2 job offers that I have turned down because I understand that it's like not worth it to make those big moves if the things that I'm genuinely focusing on growing in my life are in other areas. The next one was more content. Spend more time making YouTube videos, working on my blog for my website. That blog is all like book editing related, turning that into educational videos for TikTok, telling more stories and sharing more poetry on TikTok, writing an ebook about becoming a book editor. So this one I feel like I've done pretty well, but there's definitely more to do. One thing that I'm like massively proud of is that I started a Substack to share my writing. So that's going to be both poetry and prose, probably once or twice a month. I'm definitely going to put that in the description. If you want to read more of my writing and get that sent to you in your inbox on a regular basis, please subscribe. I have also been pretty consistent on TikTok. I've been sharing a lot over there, sharing some really good stories, and want to continue doing that for sure. The ones that I feel like I could work on more is I still need to write that ebook about becoming a book editor. So many people ask me questions about it, and I feel like I try to answer as many questions as I possibly can and make videos on TikTok, but I feel like it would just be so much easier and more thorough and more intentional if I could just point everyone to this one resource, which I've spent a lot of time on and poured all of my knowledge into. So I really do want to do that in the second half of the year. The next thing that I wrote down was more outdoors and travel. Going to travel internationally, potentially like Punta Cana, Iceland, going on a lot of hikes. We are definitely still planning to do some international travel at the end of the year. I think we're gonna do like a between Christmas and New Year kind of vacation. I'm gunning for Punta Cana. I've only ever done one like all-inclusive beach vacation, and it was our honeymoon. And honestly, I've been craving that ever since. There's just something about it that is like so genuinely relaxing. I'm like, we need to do that again. We deserve it. After I was thinking through these, I was wondering like, okay, well, is there anything that I didn't write down at the beginning of the year that maybe now is like a new goal for me? And I wrote down, get a cat. So as I mentioned, we're moving at the end of August, and one of the big parts of that decision was because we really want to get a cat, and the no pets policy in this current apartment is very strict. So we decided to make a big move. We love this place, so it wasn't like an easy decision, but I'm really excited about the new place. But honestly, other than that, I couldn't really think of anything else. So the themes, the like more of that we're trying to remember and really think about going into the second half of 2024 are more art, boundaries, travel, magic, slowness, aligned action, play, making and creating, showing up for myself with opportunities, and depth over volume. And that's it. So a lot different from past years where I was like, I want to reach X number of dollars in my business. That's just like not the vibe that I'm feeling this year. And I think that's totally fine. I think we all go through like different eras. Let me know what your goals were for the year and how you are doing on them. Are you doing any like reflection on the goals that you set? Are you changing them? Like, how are we feeling going into the second half of the year? If you needed a little bit of inspiration to do that reflection, I hope this was helpful. Next order of business, we need to tackle some dishes, which is like one of my least favorite things to do. So to convince myself to do it, I usually just put on like a Netflix show or like YouTube or something so that I can do something else while I'm taking care of the dishes. This is what we're looking at, not too bad. So I'm gonna get to that right now. All right, the house is much cleaner now, tackled all of those dishes. I think before I get started on digging into that second closet, I think I am going to get out of the house and go for a walk. I'll probably stop by Whole Foods, grab some flowers. So let's go do it. Time for a little hot girl walk moment. Up a couple of things from H&M and I was just about to be like, oh, let me show you a little haul. But the literal reason I got stuff from H&M is I wanted to get one of those suit vests that's like very trendy right now. I actually have a couple of suit vests, but not the specific kind that people are wearing at the moment. So I really wanted to get one. It is tiny. This is how far away the buttons are from even being able to close. And this is like my normal size. I have no idea what is going on with their sizing, but major flop. That is going straight back. This other shirt that I got though, oh my goodness, I love this. I was looking for like a more structured white linen shirt to wear over the summer, like one that could be like dressed up versus dressed down. And this is absolutely perfect. It has that like collarless collar and the arms are just like a little bit wide. I feel like I like should have an Aperol spritz in my hands right now. I genuinely love this so much. I also got these little cargo pants in green and in black to try them out. These ones are, I'm having like a little Kim Possible moment here, which I absolutely love. Please tell me why everything that I ordered worked except for the one thing that I like got the whole order for. Oh my gosh, these are actually so cute. Okay, so I had a little moment to chill and eat my lunch. Now I think I'm ready to start tackling that closet. I don't know how much I'm gonna get through today, but I at least wanna get started. So let's go look at what the situation is like in there. Absolutely packed to the brim in here. Just found this beret in my old like winter stuff. I had a beret phase when I was like 22. Actually kind of a vibe. I haven't worn it in like 5 years, but I feel like I can't get rid of her. It is now the next day. As you can probably tell, I had to stop my little packing journey yesterday because I went to a dance show with a friend, but we are back today. I just have spent my morning like drinking coffee and reading. I'm currently reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is very popular, and at first I was like, I don't really understand why everyone likes this so much, but now that I'm like almost done with it, I am so sucked in. I'm obsessed. It is so beautifully written. But I wanted to share with you all of the books that I have read so far this year and what I thought about them, just like briefly, and then also show you my to be read and some of the books that I want to read in the second half of 2024. I have 8 books here that I've read so far this year. Okay, so I will start with poetry. I have read 2 poetry books this year. The first one is Your Emergency Contact Has Experienced an Emergency. It's by Chen Chen. I love this poet. This is his second book, and I really, really loved the first one, so I was excited when this came out. Chen Chen is a queer immigrant, so myself, as someone who identifies as queer and is a child of immigrants from the Middle East, I just find like so much relatable in here. But also what I love about Chen Chen is that he's not afraid to be like funny or over enthusiastic or write in big long lines. Like, it's very just like exuberant and unapologetic. I feel like this would also be a good one for people who are not like poetry people, because I would say it's quite accessible in terms of the language that it uses. The other poetry book that I have read this year, which I'm actually in the process of reading a second time and using it as my like morning poetry writing prompt because I loved it that much, is The Moon That Turns You Back by Hala Alian. Hala is an Arab American poet and also has like kind of a similar, I would say, poetry aesthetic or way of writing that I do. So I just find this work so incredibly inspiring. Like, she is just absolutely brilliant, and oftentimes when I read this work I get inspired to write my own work as well, so highly recommend. I love this. Obviously I'm reading it a second time. Okay, now we're gonna do nonfiction. I finished this early in the year. It's Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. It has a similar concept to The Artist's Way in that it's about like how to live a creative life. The main difference, and I'd say the thing I really enjoyed about it, is The Artist's Way is all about accessing like this godly spiritual muse and allowing that to pour through you into your creative work, which is not necessarily my like personal belief about creativity, whereas Elizabeth Gilbert is all about like the hard work, showing up to your practice every single day so that when the magic comes, you're ready to access it and to use it. And it's a lot more aligned with like my personal philosophy around being a creative. The one thing I would say is that it's less actionable and more just inspirational. So whereas something like The Artist's Way has like journaling prompts and exercises that you can do and stuff like that, this doesn't have as much of that. It's a little bit more just about like the idea and philosophy of living a creative life. Highly recommend if you're a creative, especially if you're a writer, that you read this. I'm gonna do this one next because it's again along the same lines. Twyla Tharp's The Creative Habit. I was super interested in reading this because I feel like the other two that I was just talking about, The Artist's Way and Big Magic, are really from the perspective of writers writing about the creative process, whereas Twyla Tharp's book is from the perspective of a dancer and choreographer writing about the creative process. I myself am both a dancer and choreographer and a writer, so I really wanted to read this and kind of see like that different perspective. So this one is interesting because it kind of lands somewhere between the two in terms of being like more philosophical versus having actionable exercises. This book does have a lot of actionable exercises. These gray sections of the book are like all exercises that you can do. I didn't find the exercises very compelling, or they weren't things that I thought would really help me. I ended up just kind of reading through this and didn't really do a lot of the exercises. Once again, I liked this for the same reason as Big Magic, because Twyla Tharp talks a lot about working hard and showing up to your practice every single day and refining and getting better over the years and all of this stuff, which I believe really aligns with my personal practice. She also, it's kind of cool because it's also kind of a memoir in the sense that she goes through like her own creative life and creative journey throughout it, which I thought was really interesting because of course she's one of the most like renowned choreographers of our time. All right, last nonfiction book I'm going to talk about is You Were Born for This by Chani Nicholas. This one was interesting because it was not at all what I expected. Kind of marketed as like an astrology book with an eye towards self-love and social justice. I thought it was going to be a little bit more narrative, but I would say it's more like a guide to fully understanding your own chart. So you're not actually doing a ton of reading in this. You're really like looking at your own chart and then finding the sections of it that are relevant to you. So it was a much quicker read than I expected. I didn't learn much about like astrology in general or Chani Nicholas's like philosophy around astrology, but it was a really, really good guide to better understanding my chart, and not just like the big three, but also like all of the other relationships in the chart. Oh, I lied. I have one more nonfiction book called Off With Her Head by Eleanor Herman. This was loaned to me by a friend for research for a dance piece that I'm choreographing. I'm creating a piece, well, I have been creating a piece for like a year about untold, mistold, erased, forgotten stories and histories of women and gender expansive folks. I would say it takes on like a critical essay style, looking into the ways that women's voices have been silenced and demonized over the years. This one especially takes a look at like women in politics. So if you like a little bit more of an intellectual read with a slant towards very current feminism, this is something I would highly recommend. And on to the last two, which are fiction. Bunny by Mona Awad is one of the best books I have ever read. I could not put this down. Like once I got into it, it was the kind of thing where like any moment that I got, I would pick it up and keep reading because I just wanted to know what happened. It is a very weird, surreal, like fever dream of a book. The language and storytelling are both extremely imaginative, and you kind of leave it still not knowing what was real and what wasn't. Definitely like a really, really good example of like an unreliable narrator. The next one is The Beekeeper of Aleppo by Christy Leftery. This was an emotional journey for me because if you don't know, I'm Syrian American. My dad is a Syrian immigrant. Of course, Syria has been at war for the past like over a decade now. And this book is about a couple escaping from Syria during like the depths of the war. This was so moving and such a beautiful character study of like what refugee life looks like. It was heartbreaking for me to read as like a Syrian person, and the prose was just so beautiful and poetic. Definitely highly recommend this one as well. I've been having good luck with my reading. As you can tell, I've really liked all of the books that I have read this year. All right, let me show you my to be read. I actually just recently got this new bookshelf because my old one wasn't fitting my books anymore. So I got this like much taller bookshelf. And this top shelf primarily is my to be read. My to be read poetry is down here because it couldn't fit up there because I have a lot of poetry that I need to read. But yes, this is mostly like fiction and nonfiction, some self-development, some like writing books. Like Story Genius is a book about writing that is probably going to be more like professional development for me for my book editing business, but lots of new contemporary fiction, more stuff about women's history, and some more like personal development for me, like The Courage to be Disliked. That is a book that I have wanted to read for a long time. So yeah, I'm hoping to crack into some of these in the second half of the year. All right, you guys, I have a few hours free right now, so it is time to start packing up some sweaters. I feel like it's nice to move over the summer because you can just do all of your like coats and sweaters and all of the like big clothes. I had some hanging in the second closet, and then I also have some just kind of like piled on the shelf right there that I wear a little bit more regularly. So we're gonna just get all of those packed up except for maybe like one or two that I just have for like to wear for comfort around the house. It's not the most economical way of packing, I would say, but I do leave stuff that's hanging on the hangers and just fold it up like this. And that way, when we move in, it's going to be so easy to just take everything out and hang it right up in the closets. I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to do the ones that are just folded. This is so embarrassing. This entire pile is just like sweaters and sweatsuits. Maybe I need to get rid of some of this stuff, but every time I look through it, I can't find anything that I want to get rid of. Oh, this is so hard. I'm gonna try again to see if there's anything in this pile that I can get rid of as I pack the rest. I'm getting rid of 2 sweaters. Are you proud of me? So we made some really good progress today. That's like all of me and my husband's winter stuff pretty much packed up. And this is actually really good because I'm finding a bunch of random junk that we should just get rid of in the process. In terms of like resetting midway through the year, I feel like it's just been really nice, like in my packing process, to also be kind of curating through all of my stuff. I feel like when you move, it makes you so aware of just how much stuff you have, and I am not a minimalist by any means, but I do think that it's important to not just like overconsume and have all of this junk around you that's not serving any purpose. So I feel like this has been such a good opportunity to just figure out the stuff that is just sitting around taking up space. So if you need some inspiration for your reset, something I would highly recommend is just to choose like a space in your home that you've kind of been avoiding. So for me, it like definitely like that second closet was a big space that I just kind of avoid. Like I just shove stuff in there and like truly tackle it. Just spend like half a day going through everything and figuring out what you can cull and get rid of and what is actually serving you, and actually remind yourself of the stuff that you own. Like the amount of clothes that I've found, or like bags or shoes that I've found that I've been like, oh yeah, I forgot that I had that, and because of that I haven't even like used it for the last 2 years. Even that is really helpful because now I have a better like catalog in my head of the stuff that I own. I have a little surprise for you guys. What do we think? Talk about a mid-year reset. I needed this haircut so badly. I just hated my last haircut. It was really bothering me, and I decided, you know what? Screw it. We're going short. So I made an appointment and went and got my haircut yesterday afternoon. I love it so much. My hairstylist knew that I was getting it because I was kind of annoyed with my last haircut, but once she did this, she was like, girl, you might not want to grow this out. Like, this might be the haircut for you. It looks so good. All right, well, we're here. I have my favorite Oracle card deck, which is this Woodland Wardens deck. The illustrator, Jessica Rue, is just incredible. And her writing in the little guidebook where you like read about the meaning of each card is actually really, really good. This one is very well thought out, and it's all about like the symbolism of the plants and animals in nature and in history. So this has been definitely my absolute favorite deck. I feel like pulling a card is something that we should do just as part of this like little energetic reset. Let's see what the cards are telling us. I'm just gonna pull one for us. All right, the card that we've pulled, see how beautiful that illustration is? Oh my gosh. So this is the Trout and Lily of the Valley, and it symbolizes purification. Let's read the little description. I haven't pulled this card a lot. I actually don't know a ton about it, so I'm excited to read this. Both the trout and the lily of the valley symbolize return and restoration. On brand for this video. A river or lake teeming with trout indicates a balanced and healthy ecosystem. Conservation efforts at rewilding streams often focus on reintroducing trout to their native habitats once rivers have been decontaminated and barriers such as dams removed. Likewise, in the Victorian language of flowers, the lily of the valley communicates a return to happiness. This is perhaps due to the legend of Saint Leonard, a hermit said to have slain the last dragon in England. Wherever the blood of the dragon was spilled, lilies of the valley grew, and once the dragon was killed, Saint Leonard returned to his life of peaceful solitude. So if it's pulled upright, it means your difficulties are subsiding and happiness will soon be restored. Now is the perfect time for quiet meditation and deep introspection. If we had pulled it in the reverse, it says a toxic element is in the way of your happiness. Consider what pollutants may be upsetting your balance and seek to remove them. And there's kind of some guiding questions at the bottom, which I sometimes use as journaling prompts. And these ones say, is there a harmony within my personal ecosystem? How do I tell the difference between a toxic person, situation, or idea and one that is required for balance? I absolutely love that, especially the fact that it's like a return, restoration, rewilding, this kind of sense of like being at home in your space and within yourself, perfect time for quiet meditation and deep introspection. And I feel like that is exactly what we have been doing, just kind of reflecting on everything that has happened this year and what's coming up. These illustrations are just absolutely beautiful. Please excuse if you can hear the dishwasher running behind me. One of the things that I really love to do whenever I am kind of dropping myself into a season or resetting is cooking with foods that are in season. I am going to make a veggie-filled orzo dish that I really love to make. You can do just about anything in this dish, so I replace it with things that are kind of like seasonally fresh. So one of the things I'm going to be putting in there today is zucchini, which is in season right now. So let's get cooking, and I think this is probably going to be the last thing in the vlog is this dinner that we will make together. So I will go ahead and say goodbye to you now. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it all the way, I really appreciate you. Please do like this video and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. I am a tiny, still like new channel, even though I've been at this for a couple of years. So that stuff really helps me. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all, and I will see you in the next one after we make dinner.